Hey guys, welcome back or welcome to my channel if you're new here. So today's case is one that I've been wanting to cover for a while, but with the 1-year anniversary of this person's disappearance coming up in a couple days, I thought that this would be a really good time to hopefully get more interest in this case and possibly bring people forward with information. I've seen really little coverage of this case, sadly, and it seems like the media really hasn't given it much attention. So that's another reason why I wanted to bring light to this case, because I feel like it's gotten kind of forgotten throughout other cases, and I just wanted to bring the attention to it that it deserves. So with all of that being said, I'm going to get into my usual disclaimer. All the information that I'm reporting on is public information available to anyone. All the opinions expressed are my own, and all of my sources are linked in the description box below. Now let's get into it. Unfortunately, not much is known about Dawnita's early life and her childhood. I tried to look through all of the media articles that I could, and really all I could find is that Dawnita is 44 years old and was born on March 14th, 1976, and is from Evansville, Indiana. Dawnita is also a mother of 6 children who range in ages from the youngest being 15 to the oldest being 22. She's said to be really hardworking and have a heart of gold, and she also worked for a time at a place called Res Care, which helps people with disabilities, so that just shows how hardworking and caring she was. And her coworkers have also said very good things about her, saying that she was great at her job and really had a good attitude and was always there to help. She was also about to make a big change in her life, and a week from when she disappeared, she would have been starting nursing school. At the time of her disappearance, Dawnita was actually living with her brother in Evansville, Indiana, and police originally said that she was last seen on the morning of June 21st, 2020, leaving her brother's house. However, police actually came out and corrected themselves and said that this wasn't true and that Dawnita was actually seen leaving an East Side motel in Evansville, Indiana at approximately 8:16 a.m. and this was the last time she was seen. So as she was leaving the East Side motel, she was actually seen getting into a silver Chevrolet Suburban with tinted windows and a sunroof, and police say that she got in this car and drove off, and this was the last sighting of her ever to be reported. From this point, it's unknown how police actually know this detail, but they say that the car actually drove through Evansville and into southern Illinois and went somewhere in that area, so that's kind of where they've been concentrating their search efforts for her. This same morning of her disappearance, Dawnita actually is said to have called a family member and told them that she was really scared and felt like she was in danger and asked them if they owned a gun. By the next day, on the 22nd of June, her phone was turned off at 9 a.m. and no one ever heard from her again. Her family knew something was wrong immediately because her 15-year-old twins tried to call her on the 22nd and they couldn't get a hold of her, which was very unusual for Dawnita. On top of that, she usually called her mother every morning at 5 a.m. and when her mother didn't hear from her on the 22nd, alarm bells were really ringing for her. In the days leading up to Dawnita's disappearance, she had actually told her family and friends that she was afraid of 2 individuals and that they had been threatening her. Now, the names of these 2 individuals can be easily found online, but because police haven't publicly named them and I don't want to get sued, I'm not going to name these 2 individuals, but a quick Google search will let you know who they are. Interestingly, one of these men that she mentioned was an ex-boyfriend of Dawnita's who she had an on-again, off-again relationship with. The 2 had a really rocky relationship and he was very violent towards her and had been arrested for domestic battery against her 4 times in 2018 and 2019. Just to show you the nature of how violent this person was, one of the incidents in 2018 involved this man pushing Dawnita to the ground and hitting her head really hard because she refused to give him money. He was convicted for this incident, but there were many others that were dismissed that involved him throwing her on the bed, spitting on her, choking her, punching her, and hitting her in the back of the head with a lamp. One incident sent Dawnita to the hospital with bad injuries, and she told police that he had beaten her for hours and hit her in the head with a perfume bottle. When she had tried to leave during this incident, he threatened her with a knife and said that he would kill her and her children if she left. Although the court did put in a no contact order after these incidents, Dawnita actually tried to file an order of protection, but because she didn't show up to one of the hearings, it actually didn't end up going into place. It makes you wonder if this person prevented her possibly from going to this hearing, or she didn't go out of fear. This ex-boyfriend also has an extensive criminal record for offenses against other women who aren't Dawnita. In Illinois, he was convicted for domestic violence and battery offenses between 1987 and 2009. Also, 4 women filed protective orders against him during this time. It's mind-blowing to me that a reoffender like this, who has proven time and time again to be violent, could be released and just let out to be free and do this to other people. In the state of Indiana, actually, a domestic battery can be brought up to a level 5 felony, which means 1 to 6 years in prison if someone caused extensive injuries to their victim, or if they have a previous battery conviction against the same victim, which clearly is the case here. I don't understand why the prosecutors wouldn't bring this higher charge and lock this man up for 1 to 6 years, because at least in this time, you would know that they wouldn't be out there harming other women. If these higher charges had been brought, I feel like this person wouldn't have been out there to harm Dawnita, and possibly these crimes would have never happened and she might still be around right now. But that's just speculative. I really do feel like the police could have done more in this situation though, and that they should have stepped up and charged this person with a higher crime when they saw how dangerous they were. Unfortunately though, this man was allowed to be free and his violent behavior just seemed to continue. Weeks before her disappearance, Dawnita actually changed her cell phone number so that this man couldn't get a hold of her, but somehow he found her phone number and actually contacted her and was very angry and aggressive towards her. Even more disturbing is that in the days before her disappearance, Dawnita was receiving very graphic and threatening text messages from the same ex-boyfriend as well as an associate of his. Now, this other man is the man I mentioned earlier, one of the 2 men that she said she was afraid of. Again, the first man is the ex-boyfriend and the other man is this associate. I know it's hard to keep track of because I can't name them, but I think you guys kind of get the idea. So the ex-boyfriend and this associate were both sending her threatening text messages and threatening both her safety and the safety of her children. So this really doesn't look good. In the aftermath of Dawnita's disappearance, one of her friends actually did come forward and say that Dawnita told her that on the morning of her disappearance, she was with this ex-boyfriend as well as the same associate who had been threatening her life. So this is really important information, knowing that she was with these 2 men when she disappeared outside the motel. Further backing up this friend's story is the fact that the silver Chevrolet Suburban that Dawnita was seen entering on the day of her disappearance actually belongs to the associate of her ex-boyfriend. And so this really isn't looking good for these 2 men, and it really seems like they could have something to do with her disappearance. However, police have said that this owner of the car isn't cooperating. What I don't understand is there's definitely enough probable cause to get a search warrant for this car to see if there's possibly any blood or evidence of Dawnita being in there. It doesn't seem like they have done this or searched the car, so it makes me wonder why they haven't been able to do this, considering the fact that they know who the owner of the car is. Going back to the car, right now, it seems like police have no idea where it could be, and they're currently spending their time looking for this car, as it could have a lot of potential DNA evidence if this truly was where Dawnita was last seen. However, they haven't released the plate numbers or plate information of this car, so there's no way for the public to really help. Even if they think they see the car or they see a silver Chevrolet Suburban, there's no way to know if this was for sure the same car without knowing the plate numbers. So I find this to be a little strange. I'm also not sure why they can't just directly go to the person who owns the car and ask them where they disposed of it or where it could be, or arrest them if they don't comply, because that is something that they could potentially do. However, there must be some reasons behind the scene that I don't know. That just seems weird to me. After all, the car does seem to be the biggest piece of evidence, because if this was where Dawnita was last seen, there could be some DNA of hers pictures or blood evidence, and this could link these two men to the crime and finally be what we need to close this case. Besides not finding the car, the police also faced another roadblock in this investigation. About a month after Dawnita disappeared, a girl named Hannah Potts faked her own kidnapping. This was really detrimental in the case because it also took place in the state of Indiana, and it took a lot of the state's resources as well as the FBI's resources that should have gone to other cases such as Dawnita's. There's only so many resources that the police have to locate missing people, and unfortunately a lot of these resources were wasted on someone who made up their own kidnapping, and so that's really disappointing, and I'm sure it set back police in Dawnita's case because they were focused on this other person close by and not actually focused on a real disappearance that really deserved their attention. Also, the media really picked up on Hannah Potts' case, and that caused Dawnita's to kind of be lost in the shuffle, and it really hasn't gotten much media coverage, especially during the time of, the beginning of the investigation when Hannah Potts went missing. It took away attention during the most vital times of the investigation, which is at the beginning. Now, as for theories, there's really only one theory that's out there on the internet, and it's that these two men who threatened Dawnita, the ex-boyfriend and the associate, are involved and potentially did something to her. Now, this seems to be the most realistic theory, as they were threatening her life in the days leading up to her disappearance, and according to her friend, they were the last people to see her. So this does seem like a really likely theory. However, police haven't named these people as persons of interest or suspects in this case, which really seems weird to me because it has been a year since her disappearance, and you would think that they would have had time to gather evidence against these people, especially with so much evidence, as I've said earlier, about how they were threatening her and how they had ill will towards her. It seems like they have the motive to do something to her, and I just don't understand why they can't bring them in and possibly arrest them for not cooperating if they choose not to. Police have said, though, that they're keeping a lot of the information of this case close to the vest and not even telling the family everything, so potentially they're building a case against these people and just waiting until they have more evidence to arrest them. There's really no way to know what information they have against these people or what avenues the police are investigating because there has been so little information on this case. They've really only spoken out about a few things, like I said, when they corrected the timeline and said that Dawnita was actually last seen leaving this motel. So the police really haven't spoken out much, and there's really no way to know if they're any closer to solving this case. This case overall just shows a really big failure of the system. Dawnita was being threatened time and time again, and there was obviously someone who was violent towards her and harming her, and the police could have stepped in and brought these higher charges or done more than what they did to prevent him from harming her, but unfortunately they didn't, and this resulted potentially in something horrible happening to her. And I just think that this shows that police need to take domestic violence cases more seriously and intervene because they can escalate so quickly, and unfortunately someone like this ex who has a history of doing this, they won't stop until, they get what they want. And in this case, I feel like it was very clear that what he wanted was to harm Dawnita. If you want to help with this case, you can definitely follow the Facebook page to help find Dawnita. They organize searches all the time and walks to help find her and bring awareness to her case, and they're doing really good things over there, so be sure to follow them. I'll link it down below, as well as there is a change.org petition for Dawnita, so if you feel strongly about this case and want to help bring more attention to it, feel free to sign that as well. I'm sorry guys that I don't have more to say about this case. Like I said, there has been very little media attention, so I don't really have much information to go off of. I've pretty much just compiled all the information that there is out there, even though there's very little, because I feel like this case does need to be shared, and if you feel that way too, feel free to share this video and get the message about Dawnita to friends living in the area. But that's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you so much for watching and listening to Dawnita's story. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!